So if you guys remember the last couple of sessions, we really talked a lot about our pipeline and tracking our data and managing our pipeline and working people through the pipeline and how they get from point A to point B to point C, which is closed, right? So thinking about that and breaking it down on an even more macro level, here are just some things to think about that I want you guys to help me with and kind of give me your feedback so we'll understand it from you guys on a day-to-day basis. Why do we categorize? Why do we do that? What's the purpose of having these categories that we put people into different buckets? And what are those buckets that you're using?
To prioritize and focus our business.
Right. So you're spending time with the folks who need your time, want your time, deserve your time, have shown that they are ready to move forward and that they want your expertise and your guidance and your help to accomplish their goals, right? And generally speaking, we're putting them into, because we use Boomtown, 3 buckets, right? Hot, nurture, and watch. Hot being, up to 60 to 90 days before they're ready to close. Nurture really being that 9 months to 6 months period. And then that watch really being 6 months and beyond, right? So putting them in different buckets so we know how and when to follow up with them, why we're following up with them, what information we need to get from them to help them get to the next steps for themselves, right? But also to make sure we're providing the value to help themselves do that and make sure that they're aware and setting those expectations. So one question that came to mind is, raise your hand if you legitimately, and you can type in the group if you're not able to put yourself on chat.
Left turn.
Raise your hand if you're able to legitimately tell me how many folks you have in your primary category at the moment. So hot or A or whatever it is you call that. Tell me how many people you have in that category right now, if you know. Brandon, how many do you have?
I've got 4.
4. Okay. Holly, do you know how many you have? No. Okay. Thanks for the honesty. Miriam, I know you're just getting started. Do you know how many you have?
Potentially 1. Potentially.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
He
good.
hasn't signed, working with real estate agents, and he hasn't signed the paperwork yet. So.
Okay. And that's a really good thing to point out about that. Stephanie, how about you?
I have 4.
4. Okay. That's good. Jim Lunsford, thanks for joining us. We'd love for you to participate in our conversation. Do you have a way that you're categorizing your hot, your A, or your primary leads? And do you know how many you say you have in that category at the moment?
As of right now, in the last 30 days, I'm actually in the process of switching over my CRM. So I've got a hot mess on everything right now.
Well, we'll all say a prayer for you for that, because I know switching CRMs is not an easy thing to do. But hopefully maybe this discussion will help you arrange the chaos if you don't have something like this in place already. So would love your feedback and participation. So thinking about that a little bit more, when you think about how many you have in your hot, it's directly correlated, or should be, to how many you expect to get under contract that month, right? And we've talked about this before with our goal setting. So if we know our goal for the month is 3, and we know from our tracking data from a previous year that it takes 1.5 agency agreements for us to convert someone, well, what does that really mean if our goal for the month is 3? Who can help me out here?
It means you have to close 3, or you have to get 3 under contract to meet your goal.
It does, but what it means even beyond that is you're probably going to need more people in that hot or A or primary, whatever category you call it, unless you're converting 100% of the people you get under agency. Does that make sense? So if your goal is to close 3 for a month and you're converting, you know, at a 1.5% ratio, right? Or you're getting every, you know, it's taking you 1.5 agency agreements to close 1 deal, then you're going to need at least 4, maybe 5 in your HOTS to get to your 3 closings for the month based on that, unless your conversion ratio is 1-to-1. Does that make sense? So it's thinking about how many people you need in that category that you're actively working with that are actually going to close, right? Or get under contract. And also what you want to think about is, are they really HOTS? And how long have you considered them hot? And how long is it taking to move them through the process from when you first deemed them hot to actually getting them under contract? And are you looking at that and reviewing that? And to a degree, we haven't, because we've been so digital, although this is something we did way back in the beginning. So we're going to go back in the Wayback Machine and we're going to bring this back. And I think it's going to be really helpful for folks. So let me share my screen so you can see this document, and then we're going to break it down kind of line by line. And it's not complicated. It's a very simple document. But what it does allow is for you to, A, keep these things right in front of yourself, right? And B, be completely honest with yourself. Are these people in the right category where they need to be? Are we asking the right questions? Do we have them in the right place, or do we just have a good feel that they're going to do something, right? But how many times have you had a good feel that somebody was going to do something and then they didn't do it? Or they said they were ready, but they really never did the things that were necessary. They wouldn't talk to the lender. They wouldn't sign the documents. They looked at houses for 3 months, but kept changing their criteria, their price point, their location, all of those things, right? So hopefully this sheet will help you stay a little more focused in you thinking about your discussion surrounding them, right? So what we have here, and I hope you all can see the screen, I know some of you are on your mobile devices, is our hot client info sheet. And I'll send this out after the meeting. We're going to talk about this at our end of year meetings next week, but we're going to start implementing these sheets again. And I've reworked it a little bit just to simplify it. And what you'll really hopefully notice is all of the components of LP Mammal, which we know we need answered to qualify someone as a hot, are on this sheet. And if you can't fill out all those blanks about someone, well, then you shouldn't have this sheet filled out, right? Because we need all of those to consider somebody a hot, right? Everybody tracking with me? Okay, so let's just go from top to bottom and revisit that. What you will do, and the instructions are brief and right at the top, you're going to complete this sheet for every person when you get to hot status, meaning you expect them to get under contract in the next 90 days. And every time you meet with your BIC, you're going to review the sheet. So the first time you make the sheet, you're going to make a copy and keep it in your folder of hot clients, and you're going to give a sheet, the same sheet, to your BIC for your weekly or bi-weekly one-on-one meetings, right? And then you're going to, as part of that meeting, you're going to review your hot sheets to make sure that you're progressing, that they're progressing as we're expecting them to, right? Because if you've got somebody in the hot folder and it's 6 months later, well, then you don't really have a hot lead, or at least you didn't when you put them in there, right? So this is about making sure we're giving the right focus and helping people who say they're ready. So very simply, we're starting at the top, answering those questions. All right, whose client is this? And when did we get agency? And what's the lead source? All big things that we need that's going to go into our systems anyways, right? Then we've got our client, and then we've got their relevant partner, kids, pets, all good things to know. This will help you with closing gifts later on, with, you know, Christmas cards, all of those things. Now the type of lead, are they a buyer or seller, or are they both? And if they are a seller or both, do they need to sell before they can buy? A huge question, right? And are you going to help them do that, or is it another market? So are you lining it up to help them list first, if that's what they need to do, to start having that conversation and setting those expectations for what it looks like for how do we list and search at the same time, especially in the shifting market? You know, 6 months ago, we'll say, we can list whenever we want to, and we'll tell them we'll move out when we find the house we want, right? Well, you might not get to do that anymore, right? Because you got to find the house. And if they've finally decided on your house, they might not want to wait for anything else, right? Because they could be in the same situation. So it's like domino effect, right? How things affect each other. And is the property listed yet? Right? In another market, our market, are you going to help them? Do you need to refer them to someone else? It could be somebody in our other office. It could be somebody out of state or in an area of the state that we don't work. And is it listed yet? So you have all that information to have those conversations to set the expectations for scenarios, how it could play out, etc. When's your strategy session date? Have you actually sat down and done that? Or have you just shown them a house or had a conversation on the phone? This could be virtual. As we know, we do a lot of these Zoom or FaceTime strategy sessions, which is good. You should be doing these one way or another. Obviously, we want to get face to face, but the strategy session is important because it sets you apart from other agents. It allows you to show your value, right? Allows you to go through these different scenarios and help make sure that they're comfortable, not only with the documents, but how the process could play out, and answer those questions for them to make sure they feel comfortable and confident. Are they paying cash? Or are they getting a mortgage? Who's their lender? What are they approved for? All right, they're approved for 400. They keep sending you houses that are 500. Why are you allowing that to happen? Are you having a conversation with them about, hey, this is your budget. Do you have other money that we've talked about? These homes have been on the market for a week. Okay, now this house has been on the market for a month and a half. And I can tell you it's overpriced. I don't know that it's $100,000 overpriced, right? All of these things. Then, of course, very important, the criteria. Where are they looking? What is that price point relative to their approval amount? Some people might be approved for 6, right? But I don't want to spend all that money. 4 is my max budget. We all know that lenders are going to approve for the max that they can approve, right? It's just part of life. They're going to let people know what their top options are, the max they can go, right at that limit, right? But by and large, people probably aren't going to push that far. So location, price, of course, what do we always talk about? Minimum criteria. Let's keep it baseline. Beds, baths, property type. Are we talking condos, townhomes, multifamily, single family, land? What is it we're looking for? And then a garage is important. And then beyond that, well, what's your motivation or what other criteria? Oh, I want a fence. Okay, that's nice, right? We can keep an eye out for fences, but let's make sure that we get all the other things first, right? And then if it comes down to 2 who have everything and 1 has a fence, well, then we can go to the fence, right? But really understanding what it is that's important to them in the search and making sure that we're keeping that in our line of sight, right? So we're not spending time showing them things that don't meet what they've said they're looking for, right? And this is when it's really going to come into play. You're going to review this every week, and your BIC's going to say, okay, Holly, you've had Bob Jones in your hot sheet. Today is December or November 30th. You've had them in your hot since October 30th. That's 30 days. What progress have you made since you deemed them hot? Where are we with things? And Holly might say, well, we've made 2 offers, but they haven't gotten accepted yet. Okay, that's great. You're moving in the right direction. Holly might say, oh, well, they hadn't gotten approved yet. Oh, well, then Stephanie might say, well, why'd you fill the sheet out? Because they're really not a hot yet, because they really haven't taken the steps to deem themselves a hot, because they're not ready to make a decision, right? Another example, Miriam might have someone in there. Hey, I've had a really good conversation. I know exactly what they want. I know their time frame. I know what they're approved for. They haven't signed agency yet. I've had them in my hot sheet for hot folder for 2 months. Brandon, what's that conversation going to look like?
They're not a hot lead.
Right.
Yeah, they're not a hot lead.
And so a lot of the purpose of this is to help us be realistic with ourselves about what a hot lead really is. So we're not putting our position in we're not putting ourselves in a false sense of security position to think, oh yeah, well, I've got 6 hot leads, so I'm going to write them all by the end of the year. But then at the end of the year, you've written 2 of them. And that's because in actuality, when you break it down and you go back and look at the facts and what was taking place, they weren't exhibiting the activity that actually made them a hot. Now, I'm going to add a little caveat to this. We all have people in hot in Boomtown because we want to keep an eye on them above and beyond watch and nurture, right? And that's okay. I do it. Everybody does it. We know they're a little bit further out. We don't know exactly what their timeline is, but we're confident we're going to work with them when the time comes, right? And that's just a good way for us personally to keep an eye on them. This is not for those people. This is for the people who you know the answers to all of LP Mammal, who are in the car with you, actively looking and ready to offer on homes, who you have an approval letter for in hand, who you know that they can write at any time that you go out and that they're under agency and working with you and with you only. What questions do we have about this? Thoughts, comments, good, bad, the ugly?
I just think the most important thing in all of this is to be honest with yourself about someone who's hot, because in my experience, a lot of people will have a really good conversation with someone and they'll say, you know, when do you want to buy a house? Well, I want to buy a house ASAP. And then they automatically think they're hot. And you're mentally setting yourself up for disappointment if you're not holding them to the standard of performing and closing and doing the things that they need to do to be successful in the home search. Because what's going to happen is if you judge them as hot when they're really not, you're going to get frustrated with yourself and your business and think you're doing something wrong, or you're not closing, or I'm not good at this, I want to give up. And the reality is none of those things are true. You just misjudge where that person is in their search. Just because they want to say that they want a house immediately does not mean that they're a hot lead. They still have to do the things. I never put someone in hot, with rare exception, unless I've met with them in person, had a strategy session, and they've been pre-approved, with very rare exception. The only thing I can think of is if I know them personally, or if they are, you know, relocating from another state and like I've got to have a house in 30 to 45 days. But even still then, I don't put them in hot unless I've had a Zoom consult, strategy session, and I've seen their proof of funds. I never put investors in hot because investors are so flaky. It's all about dollars and cents and ROI on them. They'll change their mind in a heartbeat. I never put an investor in hot. And that's kind of the strategy that I use to guide my pipeline.
That's a really good point, especially about investors. And it's really a funny thing. It's like when you start out in real estate and you connect with someone who says, oh, I'm an investor. You think, well, these people are going to take care of me forever because, you know, they're going to buy 3 houses, 4 houses a year, and that's going to be a steady stream of income and it's going to be great. And then you start showing them homes and they're like, well, I'm not paying that. Or they're just unrealistic about the marketplace. All of those types of things, which are really good points, which is a really good reason why not to put somebody like that necessarily in your hot category for those reasons. What this really gets down to is making sure that you are being honest with yourselves and how you're talking to people and categorizing people so you're spending your time the right way. Because either A, you're going to do a really great job of getting a bunch of people into the hot category, and then you're going to be writing contracts left and right, or you're going to be putting people there and you're going to continue to add people there without writing contracts. And it's because you're not getting the right information that you need to properly help them move along throughout the process. So a little bit of it is us being honest with ourselves. A little bit of it is making sure we're tracking their progress to make sure that we have the information we need and we're giving them the support they need to move along and make their decision. And, you know, the third part is, are we really asking the hard questions of them so we know? So they know that they're hot and they know that they're ready to make a decision? Or are we just kind of allowing them to flounder out there? This is really, it looks simple. It is simple. The great thing about it is when you start moving them from your hot folder to your closed folder, because we got them through the process and we did what we said we were going to do. So if you're using a sticky on your desktop, this will help back up the sticky on your desktop or your desk or your laptop or whatever. Create a folder, add your hots to it, take them to your meeting with your next big meeting, and then be prepared to review them every meeting. So be prepared to speak about updates for each person in that sheet or in that folder for every one of those meetings. And then, you know, from like my perspective or Brandon's perspective, Stephanie's perspective, any, you know, sales manager or BIC or team lead, what they're going to be doing at the bottom is, all right, got this on, you know, November 1st. On our meeting 2 weeks later, they're out showing homes. On their meeting 2 weeks later, at the end of the month, they've written 2 offers, neither have got accepted. And their meeting 2 weeks after that, they're under contract, right? That's perfect scenario for how one will play out. On the other hand, you know, we're not showing any homes. We're not writing any offers. They can't find anything that they like. We're not even in the car. Are these people really hot? Do we need to revisit what their criteria are? We will get signs of how to change our conversations with them. And that's what your BIC will be able to help you do based on the information you're bringing to them about these specific clients during those one-on-ones. I promise it will help you engage with your clients better, and it'll help you move them through the process better. It's a really great tool, and it's cool to see how it works and how it brings people through the process and how to help you. Any other thoughts or questions or ideas how you might use this a little differently or anything, or how you're doing something similar now? In a lot of ways, you should be doing it similarly now. We just don't have a formal way to do it. Stephanie, any thoughts?
No, I don't think so. I definitely agree with Brandon about I choose very wisely who I put in hot, not just someone who you have one conversation with who says, yeah, I need to buy. Like they have to be pre-approved. I have to have them under agency before I switch them to hot. Just setting proper expectations for myself personally, because I don't want to have 6 people in hot and then be disappointed when I only write on one of them because I'm not qualifying properly.
100%.
And then other than that, I would just say, don't fill these out and throw them in your desk and call it a day. Like you have to keep up with them, check them, see what's going on, and then you can evaluate maybe why you're not moving your pipeline down properly. So
100%. This is just another tool in your quiver to help you make sure that you're attacking and moving your pipeline along to help you get folks where they need to be, and that you're doing your piece too to help do it, and that you're able to stay on top of it, obviously, with just a little bit more info. And then you're taking advantage of the team resource, which is you've got these one-on-one meetings to help you look at your specific pipeline and make sure that you're addressing things that are going on with your specific pipeline to help you achieve your goals in your business. And that's the beauty of the setup, is you got the tools, you got the support. Let's review the information. Let's work together to decide how to get you and your folks where they need to be. What's going well, what's going wonky, what needs to be massaged to move things in the right direction. If we're not collecting data, if we're not reviewing data, if we're not talking about the data, then we're just guessing. And you're going to be a lot less successful guessing than by paying attention to the data, right? We talk a lot about being data driven when we're giving information to our clients for comps and things, right? We don't just guess about prices. Well, we shouldn't guess about our pipeline and about what our business looks like either, right? Cool. Well, I will get this out to everybody. For our team internally, we will discuss it at our goal setting meetings next week and start getting those implemented here at the end of the year, moving into 2023. And I encourage you guys to have a great day and have a great week. We're almost at December. We're really ramping up for next year now. So keep working on building that pipeline and closing out those HOTS for 2022. You guys have a great day. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.